one of the biggest lessons I learned, and it sounds so like common sense, is how important relationships are, whether that's in your life or in your career. You know, if I didn't have the people in my life that I had during that time, like my family and my girlfriend and all the people around me, I would be in a much darker place than I was, you know, when I was going through everything.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us for our first CM Conversations. We're here today with the beautiful Dylan Brady.
Stop it.
Dude, I'm stoked you're here.
I'm stoked to be here.
I'm really excited to be doing this. This has been an idea that we've had for a while, and whenever it came time, you were the first call.
Stop. I'm just happy we get to do something together finally.
Absolutely. Well, dude, like I think really what I want a lot of this to talk about is just like have a sneak peek of like the behind the curtain. Like I think a lot of interviews and stuff, like we've heard and addressed like a lot of just like very top level stuff, but I think my goal was just kind of like to hear the heart and like the person. You stole the words out of my mouth. But yeah, and so when it comes to it, like tell me like the story of like how you kind of got started in the world of music. Like I think I know some of your story as being homies, but I don't even think I've really heard kind of the origin story of Dylan.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't make any sense, but my mom said I was trying to sing before I could talk, which I don't really think that makes any sense.
Fair.
Which I'm like, was I just crying and you were like, oh, it's beautiful because you're my mom? You know what I mean?
Crying in melody?
Yeah, exactly. So I've always been singing. My dad does music. That's how he like got through college. He played in bars and stuff. And I think that's where I got it from. So I was always singing. I have a twin brother who played music as well. And we were in a duo called the Brady Brothers, which was the cringiest time of my life. Yeah, but I was always singing as long as I can remember. You know, when I was 3 years old, I would run into like family gatherings, and we have a really big family because my dad's one of 9 kids, so we have like 50 people.
Brady's
it's like a small Brady Bunch gathering, and I would be like 3 years old, and I would run in, and weirdly enough, I was obsessed with the not the Pledge of Allegiance, God Bless America, and so I would run in with my xylophone at 3 years old and like sing God Bless America, but like I was just hitting the xylophone, like it wasn't like it wasn't the parts or anything. Oh. So yeah, I was always singing. Even my dad tells a story when I was like 3 or 4. I was in my wagon with my brother, and we had like a double wagon. We had some family friends like running my brother and I around the outside of the house, like the perimeter in the wagon, and we had a dumpster in the driveway, and so they're running us around the house with the wagon. We get into the driveway, and they take a sharp turn by the dumpster. And my face just like smacks the dump, like straight up, and like had like a giant egg on my face. So my dad like runs me inside. He turns the TV on so like I don't fall asleep because I definitely have a concussion. That was definitely my first concussion.
It's a good start.
You know, he turns on the TV, and some man singing God Bless America comes on the TV. And I'm like screaming my head off, like bloody murder, because I have literally an egg on my face.
You know that whole thing.
And I hear God bless him, and I stop crying, and I stand up, put my hand on my heart, and I start singing God Bless America with him. Yeah, so
that is adorable.
Yeah, so I think it's always been part of me, and I've never really strayed from it because I'm not really good at anything else. So I think it's my only choice.
Well, I mean, that's a good choice.
That was a really long story. So
no, and that's good. And so, like, what made you take it serious, though? Like, going from a kid who obviously had some talent towards taking steps towards being in the industry, being down in Nashville, because you're not originally from here, right?
No, I'm not. I'm from New York. I'm from Long Island. And there's not much of a music scene on Long Island either. As I said, since I've always done it, it was kind of the only thing I ever really stuck with. And before high school, I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, which is not very noticeable. Nobody really knows I have it, other than the fact that I talk about it quite a bit. And so I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, and I started speaking in schools around the country, in Canada, and all over. Not only about Tourette's, because I have Tourette's, that's what makes me different, but as cheesy as it sounds, I tell the kids that everybody has something that makes them different. And so I started speaking in schools across the country, in Canada, and all over, and at the end of doing this presentation I would play a few songs for the kids. So that kind of started like gaining a little bit of a following, and kind of started like, the whole like journey of it being more of a thing rather than just me playing in my hometown.
Totally.
At that point, I was, speaking in these schools, and Disney Channel found out about what I was doing. So Disney Channel did a special on me. Oh, I hit the microphone.
You're good.
Did a special on me called Make Your Mark, for kids making their mark on the world. That was when I was 15. I was on Disney Channel, and that ended up me getting hooked up with Zach Brown Band, because he has a camp for kids with disabilities called Camp Southern Ground, which kind of just really went hand in hand with what I was doing. And so I started, speaking to the kids at the camp, opening for Zach quite a bit, which introduced me to Rascal Flatts, which introduced me to, the record deal where I was at. And it kind of all worked its way out that way. I had moved to Nashville when I was 17, right after I graduated high school, right around that time when I was working with Zach. And to become more serious, I think it kind of started with the whole Disney Channel stuff. Even though I wasn't in the music industry, It was like, okay, like this is like
a professional step.
Yeah, it's like moving towards something, which I thought at that point I was going to be the next Justin Bieber, because I was like, oh, I was on Disney Channel, and then it didn't. But the thing I love to talk about is that opportunity, I thought it was going to change my life, and it didn't in that moment, but it got me to the next one, got me to the next one, to the next one, and if you trace it all back, it all comes back to me having Tourette's and wanting to tell people that, you have to accept yourself and accept other people. So
when it comes to like integrating that into being a Nashvilleian and like getting a record deal here, what was that journey? I know that like coming to town is a big step and all that kind of stuff. You blew up at the beginning of the pandemic on TikTok and like had that big moment. Like how did that lead into like label and all that kind of stuff?
I think my record deal story is different than most of Nashville now with TikTok and with social media. But after I started working with Zach Brown Band, I got introduced to Rascal Flatts, and I had signed an artist development deal with Rascal Flatts when I was 18. And so we were supposed to work on like an EP together, and then start, meeting with labels like a year later. But I ended up getting a cold email from a label called Records New York, which I thought it was spam, because I'm like, who names their label Records, basically. I had signed my record deal before TikTok was a thing, well before TikTok was a thing, like a year or two before. I learned a lot in that situation. I learned a lot about myself as an artist and a songwriter. It was an opportunity I thought was going to change my life, and it didn't, but it also did for a lot of reasons, like teach me so many things about, I was 19 when I signed my record deal. Like, I didn't know anything.
I was just a dumb freshman whenever I...
Dude, I mean, literally, it's interesting you say that, because, like, I remember, like, at that point, like, making a really big life decision when all, like, my friends back home were, like, deciding if they should, like, go out to a party that night, you know what I mean, at their college towns, you know? So my record deal was a learning experience, and I'm really thankful it happened at 19, 20, 21, 22, and not 35 when I have kids, and
it's a bigger consequences.
Yeah, and I learned a lot. It wasn't the right team, and that's okay. But I learned a lot, and throughout that time, you brought up the TikTok thing. TikTok became a thing, and TikTok isn't everything, but it's a tool. And so I was in that situation, and my record deal wasn't. I wasn't necessarily a priority, so I was like, how do I make myself a priority? And so I was like, I can grow a following, and I can write better songs, and I can produce a song. So I started doing that, and I grew the following, and getting out of the record deal, it's been a blessing to have that audience now that I didn't have before. So
tell me what it looks like going to independent. Like, what does that look like to like the rest of the world? Because in industry, I get it, but like to explain it to somebody outside of the industry, how has your life changed from being signed to now being an independent artist?
Well, at the end of the day, a record label, a record deal, as I said before, you think is going to change your life because you're told it's going to change your life. And it very well can, I know plenty of people who signing their record deal has changed their life. And it should, right? But at the end of the day, a record label is really just a bank. It's what it's funding you didn't have before. Now it's people working with you, but you can have people working with you without a label deal. It's really just a bank. I thought it was going to change my life, and it didn't, and that's okay. The difference is really less funding and figuring it out myself, and I'm okay with that, because I'd much rather go into whatever opportunity is next, whether that is, if it's a next record deal, is having a better handle on my career than I did when I was 19 years old, and know what I want this time. And the biggest thing I learned in that record deal was everybody wants to be signed to Columbia Records, right? Which is where I was at. That sounds so cool to say. But if it's not the right team, it's never going to be the right team. And when I got out of my record deal, I called one of my buddies in LA who was signed to Columbia when he was my age. He told me when he got dropped that his manager told him that Katy Perry, the Jonas Brothers, and One Republic all got dropped from Columbia in the same exact week, which is just like mind-blowing.
It's a bad week for Columbia.
Yeah, and also somebody at Columbia probably got fired because they had a terrible ear.
Fair.
But it was really eye-opening because, One Republic didn't have bad songs, and it just wasn't the right people. And that was really eye-opening for me, because when I was in that situation, I was like, oh my God, I'm by myself now. But I'm like, no, it just wasn't the right team. And I got out of it at, once again, 19, 20, 21, 22, and I learned so freaking much about myself as an artist, as a songwriter, as a person, like how to deal with people. What kind of music do I want to make? Like they wanted me to be Tim McGraw, and I'm like, bro, I am from Long Island, New York, and I wear pearls around my neck. Like, I love
With all
country
due
music.
respect.
With all due respect, I'm not.
Love him.
I love him. I really do. Don't Take the Girl is one of my favorite songs ever. But like, it's just not who I am, and I had to learn that, you know. So being independent now it's great because I'm able to release music when I want, release the music that I want, make the music that I want, and once again, then be able to release it and build a team around me that I trust. You know, one of the biggest lessons I learned, and it sounds so like common sense, is how important relationships are, whether that's in your life or in your career. You know, if I didn't have the people in my life that I had during that time, like my family and my girlfriend and all the people around me, I would be in a much darker place than I was, you know, when I was going through everything. And on top of that, how important relationships are in your career, you know. I had relationships with the people I was at, but it wasn't the right one. And so now going into the next one is, you know, I want to have the right people around me and the right relationships around me. And I had to learn that. Once again, I feel like that's going to be my freaking motto today, is I had to learn that. And so, yeah, right now, you know, being independent it's really just me, and I'm really happy that I'm able to build a team around me now that has my best interest, and I just have a better handle on who does what and what goes where, and, you know, just having a better handle on my career as, you know, as a 24-year-old on where is this going and where do I want it to go and why do I want it to go there, you know?
How does that autonomy of like, you run the ship now, like you get to make the decisions on when music comes out, what artwork looks like, that's all you. Mm-hmm. So I know it's a burden in the sense that like you do a lot of people's jobs right now.
Totally.
But there's also the autonomy to where like you are the decision maker, you are the artist, like you are full-fledged making choices. And I think like the music, I'm sure, reflects that. Like how has the music changed, and what is it like being having more autonomy when it comes to the process?
Well, I think anytime like I get stressed with it, I have to remind myself that like I would much rather be dealing with this in this job than any other job. And once again, I'm not good at anything else, and I dropped out of college, so like this has got to work. Yeah. So I'd much rather be stressed with this than be stressed, you know, behind a cubicle and a cubicle. That's first and foremost. It does get stressful, but once again, and also I look at where I was, and I'm so much happier now. Totally. You know, where I am. And how has the music changed? You know, I think I'm at a point where I'm like, I feel like for the longest time I was making music that I was told to make to appease people around me, which was my job, because, you know, they were the ones, you know, who were funding it. Totally. But now where I'm at, I'm like, you know, I just want to make music I love. And if I have this outlook on things that if I like the sound of something, well, or maybe not just if you like the sound of something, if you're making music, if you like the sound of it, somebody else is going to like it too. Right. And I think where I'm at musically now is you know, it's hard to put a word to it, what kind of music it is. And I think that's because I'm from Long Island, and I also love country music, and I also love pop music, and I love, you know, singer-songwriter, and I love, you know, it's hard to put a name to it, but I think where it is just, you know, I'm going with my gut, and rather than going with what I think somebody who I'm signed to is going to like, you know? And I think that's exciting, because then I think that's the best music you're going to make. I think being an artist is not doing what other people tell you to do, right? I think there's a big difference. I think we've talked about this before. There's a big difference, I think, between a singer and an artist. And I think singers will have a moment and singing what somebody else wants them to sing, and an artist is it might take a little bit longer, because it's a lot easier to bet on something that sounds like something that's worked before. But I think being an artist is about sounding like yourself, and I think that's where longevity is. You know, you look at the Taylor Swifts of the world, or you look at the Coldplays of the world, or whatever it is, like nobody sounded like Taylor before Taylor, and nobody sounded like Coldplay before Coldplay. You could see their influences, but I think that's why they've had a career and not just a moment, you know? That's the business I'm in, is I want to have a career and not a moment, you know?
No, and I think that's so good, and I think you're doing that when it comes to like new music too. Like I think you're finding your own lane, and I think I can feel it in the music. Like How Are You feels bigger than anything else you've ever done. Like it has just this like depth of emotion that I haven't feel like seen you dip down into before.
Even though in a loving relationship, and it's a sad song.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, what did it look like writing a breakup song in a happy relationship with Brigida?
It's so funny. I remember when I first started teasing that song, I kept getting comments like, did you and your girlfriend break up? And I'm like, no, we didn't break up. I am a concept first writer where if I have an idea that I love, I'm going to write it. And I am in a loving relationship and I'm the luckiest boy in the world, but that's not always love songs.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of love song ideas that come from, you know, from real life experience that I'm in right now. But I had that title and I had that concept about, you know, all the things you didn't say and what you did say. When you run into that person you're not over. And I loved it. So I was like, I'm going to write it, even though I am not feeling those emotions right now. And I think to put myself there, I don't go back to old people. I put myself in the shoes of, now if Brigida did break my heart and I did see her out and she was over me, what would I feel?
That probably makes conversations with her about the song
100%. 100%. She's like, who'd you write this about? You. Hopefully never. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, it was so funny. I kept getting comments and I had to keep replying, no, we didn't break up. It's just a sad song that, you know, I love sad music. I love sad songs. I love great concepts, and I thought it was a great concept and I wanted to write it regardless. I wasn't going to break up with my girlfriend for 6 months to put out the song. Totally. You know what I mean? Which maybe I would get some good song ideas, but I don't know. I love the concept and I was like, you know, I'm going to write it. So.
Dude, it turned out so good. And I'm happy that I had a moment. Like, I know for you, we've had the conversation as an artist, you're like, well, I expected so much out of it. Like, it had a really dope moment. It's still streaming great. But like, I know kind of like how do you balance the expectations on yourself? Because we're just in a weird industry where, like, even for us, like, we put out a video with an artist and we like look at the views. Like, we have nothing to do with the views 99% of the time. But like, so much of like, it's so easy to let our identity become how many views or how many streams you get. How do you balance like the commerce versus art kind of thing? Because ultimately, like, it's your job and like you want to do really good, but it's also like, I got to let the music breathe, and like my identity doesn't come from how well a song does.
It's so funny because you're right. Your identity doesn't come from how well a song does, but at the end of the day, in this job, you literally are the product. So like, it feels like a full representation of you and how well you were doing because it is literally you. And so that's why I think it's so hard to separate. And I remember with How Are You in particular, you know, there's certain songs you put out because you want to just keep putting out songs and keep the algorithm happy and keep fans happy. And then there's certain songs that you're like, wow, like, I really believe in this song. Not that you don't believe in the other songs, but you really believe in it. Mm-hmm. And at least with How Are You, I was like, shoot, if this doesn't change my life, I don't know what will. And I'm going to be really sad if it doesn't. And I was feeling that, and I was putting a lot of pressure on it. And then right before it came out, like a few days before, I don't know if I necessarily took it to heart, but I said it to myself as I said, you know what? I don't need this song to change my life. I just need to see growth. Mm. And, you know, once again, you know, we've talked about it. I'm way happier now than I was. I'm making music I want to make. But I was going through a really tough time for a while because, you know, my world got flipped upside down and I was like, okay, I'm starting over by myself again, you know. I was putting a lot of pressure on this song. And then I said to myself, okay, I just need to see growth. It doesn't need to change my life. And then the song came out. And I was on Instagram Live like the second it came out because I was, you know, like celebrating with people. Yeah. And I had never had this happen where this is proof that I didn't take it to heart, is I was like shaking. Like I was like visibly like shaking. I said to the camera, I was like, gosh, guys, I don't know why, but I'm shaking like crazy right now. And I said to the camera, I was like, you know, I think I just put a lot of pressure on this song. Like I really wanted to change my life. This one girl named Liesel, she's been supporting for a little while now. She's really, really sweet and she's always commenting on stuff. And she commented on the Instagram Live. She goes, well, Dylan, I really hope it changes your life. But if it doesn't, it's already changed my life. And I was like, oh, dude.
The heartstrings.
It really like resonated with me. And I tell a lot of people that because it really, really, really resonated with me because I was like, shoot, I'm so selfish. This is not about me. You know, like it is because this is the music I make and it's how I'm going to, you know, put food in my belly, you know, like, but at the end of the day, it's about resonating with people, with a lot of people. You want it to keep growing, and that's the point of putting out songs. You want to see growth, but like that comment really, really stuck with me. And so I still look at the numbers like crazy. I tell myself I shouldn't, but I still do. And you know, How Are You had a moment, is having an ish moment, but it's all relative, right? Like, I remember the song came out, it was the biggest release I had, and then it doubled its first day streams like a week later. I'd never seen that. Usually the song comes out and the first night is the biggest, you know, the most numbers because people are seeing if they like it, and then it just consistently does this. It's just kind of the name of the game. I talked to all my friends who are artists, it's just like, it's how it usually goes. I'd never seen a song do this and then do this. But it's all relative, you know, like I saw one of my buddies that same week post that he had 1 million streams in a day. And I'm like, okay, it's all relative. Yeah. But going back to my earlier point, I saw growth. And I saw growth that I hadn't seen before. And then, you know, that opened up the door to go on the road the past few months with my buddy Seaforth. And, you know, I'm playing these shows and people are singing back, how are you? And it was really, really good for my heart and my head. And you know, I said before, at the end of the day, you are the product. So it's really freaking personal, right? It's really personal.
I get that even with video, man.
Dude,
like you put it out there and like even just revisions. Like I've had to like learn to like disassociate a little bit because like someone would give notes and I'd be like, well, you hate me. Like you hate me because you don't think what I made isn't perfect. And then it's just like, no.
Totally.
We're just trying to work on this piece of art with outside perspectives that are a lot healthier.
But doesn't that make when somebody loves your revisions or whatever, like,
oh dude,
you feel even better?
We had a video the other day I turned into a label and we didn't get revisions at all.
Oh my God.
And I was like concerned and confused before. I was like, what?
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah, dude.
I can't lie. I hit that little fist pump
by
myself in my room, literally alone. Just hit this, did a little walk around the room, and I was like, okay.
I thought you said did a little spin.
Oh, I mean, I might have took a little shot to myself.
Oh, dude, it's real. It's so personal, and so it makes the highs really freaking high, makes the lows really freaking low. And, you know, the past few months of How Are You having relatively a moment, well, relatively being the key word, has been really just good for my heart and my head, and having people sing it back to me for my heart and my head was really good too. You know, because once again, those moments, they're small in the grand scheme of life, but they're big in that moment because it's so personal. It was been a really good few months for me.
When it comes to like balancing the highs and lows, like I think we kind of talk about like how that night it's like the shaking, like excitement, terrified,
and more like nerves.
Oh yeah, you're gonna throw up. You turn the live stream off or turn it around for a second, puke and come back. But when it comes to like balancing the highs and the lows, like how do you find like peace in the middle? Because I think that's something that I've been working through too, is just like not like allowing yourself to feel the emotions, but also not like riding the highs and lows as hard, if that makes sense. Like, how do you do that and like find sustainability in what can be such a, I mean, when it rains, it pours, and when it doesn't rain, it's a drought, you know? Like, how do you find balance and like sustainability in that?
I don't know if I have, honestly. Like, it's really interesting, and you're in the same boat, is when your hobby becomes your job, like you don't have, I mean, at least I really don't have any other real hobbies. You know what I mean? Because like by the end of my day, you know, playing guitar all day or recording all day or singing all day or whatever, and looking at my phone while doing videos, like the last thing I want to do is look at my phone or like pick up a guitar again. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know if I've necessarily found that balance. I think I'm finding that balance. I don't know. I think it's being around people that make me feel good and trying to not look at the numbers, even though I do. And but also I will say, like, looking at the numbers and not finding that balance pushes me to keep working. You know what I mean? Because like I'm not happy with it yet. I'm not going to be happy till it's undeniable. You know what I mean? And then I probably won't be happy either. I'll be happy as a person, but you know, because I've always been a happy guy.
Unsatisfied.
But unsatisfied. Yeah, that's unsatisfied. Unsatisfied.
Did we just make something?
Yeah, we did.
All right. One last thing I want to hit on is tell me something you're excited about. Like, I think we get really caught up in the weeds when it comes to like hustling and wanting to grow something. Like, what is something that like you're stoked on? Like, whether it's upcoming music, whether it's going on the road with Seaforth, like tell me something that like is either recent or like upcoming that like was a joy or something you're really stoked to like lean into.
I really tried to take in the past 2 months on the road with Seaforth because I believe in them, and having somebody who I believe in me felt really good. And, you know, seeing people the crowd singing back a song that I believe in and I wrote was really, it just felt really good. And I really tried to take it in, especially the last show. We ended it with the loudest show, hands down. I just remember, like, most shows I'll have my phone up, like, taking it in, like, you know, just so I can look back on the memories, but I really didn't that show. And I just, like, tried to, you know, not while I was playing, have my phone up, but while the boys were playing. And I just really tried to take it in. So that was really exciting. And I'm excited for new music, and I'm putting a lot of pressure on the new music, especially after How Are You Relatively doing something. I'm like, oh God, now the rest of the songs need to do something too. And I've always felt that way, but I want all the songs to do that or do more, or, you know, hopefully do more. So I'm excited about the new music, but I'm putting a lot of pressure on the new music for sure. Yeah, I think that's exciting. And, you know, there's some other touring opportunities that might be coming up too that are really exciting. And it feels really good to be, you know, you asked the question about what's the difference between being a major label artist and being independent. It feels really good to be independent right now and have more happening than I did with 60 people around me.
That has to feel you like,
you know what I mean?
You just, all right, like, we can do it.
And I
like,
didn't.
It also proves yourself right, because I feel like you probably felt a little bit like, hey, just like let me go. Like let me do, like just let me put music out and see what happens.
100%. And I didn't do it in spite of anything. I didn't do it be like, oh, watch this. You know what I mean? I didn't do it for any reason other than selfishly for myself, you know?
Believed in yourself.
But just that validation to see those numbers and to see those people sing about the songs. And once again, the validation is really validating. So, and this job is not instant gratification whatsoever. It really isn't. You know, writing a song that you love is, but then what happens with that song? You know, you never know what's going to happen with it. Maybe the balance is finding more hobbies that have instant gratification in my life, you know what I mean? Because I don't necessarily find that with my job. Yeah. I'm excited about where I'm at. I you know, once again, I won't be satisfied till it's undeniable, and I once again probably still won't be satisfied, but I'm happy, and I'm happy to be happy because I wasn't happy for a while.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a good spot to be in.
Yeah, how many times should I say happy in a sentence? You know.
Well, I mean, you're the happy boy. So
yeah, true. True.
Well, Dylan, thank you for coming out. I'm stoked. I'm excited to see your CM sessions.
I'm glad to be here.
All right, cuz. Love you, bud.
I love you, bro. Appreciate you.